And you look good as a shark.
I think everyone was expecting me to dress up in a costume.
What happened?
I know, I'm always the only one in costume, so screw all of you for your expectations. It wouldn't have been the first time I came to a brewery in costume anyways, but upending. Thank you to everyone before. I hate microphones. To Phil and Tim and Alicia, y'all were great. To Garrett and Mary B, thank you for having me. Yes. So I've been here for way too long, and this is my last Underpass reading. And we're no longer at an Underpass, but it feels really right that we're at a brewery. To explain my bio, last year I said I'm not actually a ghost. It took Mike Rands, who's not here, a lot of convincing that I wasn't a ghost, but I'm here to say I'm actually a ghost. So adjust your expectations accordingly. Cool. So this is a special night, not just because it's my last reading for this thing, though there's a third year reading, April 30th apparently. But it's also the first time that my sister will ever hear me read. She apparently has to go to a wedding during the third year reading, so this might be the only time. She's got friends, guys, it's crazy. But the funny thing, so I'm gonna read 3 short things for you. It might go for a while, but like, who cares? It's my last time. She has heard this story before. So a cool thing happened this summer in August, and I feel as gross saying this, but I got published for the first time. Yes. Thank you. I appreciate your applause. Just buy me a beer. But when I got published, it was in Tin House's Flash Fridays, so it was on a Friday, and when it happened, I was in a car with Meg and our brother and our really fratty cousin, and there was like trap music blasting, and we were like heading up into the Adirondacks in upstate New York, and I was losing service and trying to be like, thank you everyone, but downloaded the story in time on my phone because I'm a narcissistic writer, and that weekend was a family wedding, and my giant Irish Catholic family drunkenly provided many dramatic readings of this story. So none of them understood it either, so I'm starting with like my weirdest stuff, and then we're gonna go into like maybe more acceptable things. So Meg, here's like the 50th time you've heard this story. But like, all right, it's called What Was Your Favorite Color Growing Up? If you walked into that house, you'd think you've just walked out of it. It always smells like toast. Toast and fertilizer. There are a lot of green plants around, but none of them are alive unless you believe plastic breathes, and the man in there does. He does Tai Chi after breakfast every morning, but calls it yoga. If you saw it, you'd call it dancing. There's nothing blue in the house because the woman in there thinks blue should only be for the sky. After you arrive, she'll decide to live in the backyard with stacks of half-melted records, lots of reggae, no soul. You'll want to ask her, what about the blues? But I wouldn't. There are no bedrooms in the house, only closets, and the closets all have porcelain white sinks. Water's everywhere, mold like bruises on the ceilings, and yet when you ask, they'll say they've never made toast. Soon you might think you've never made toast. Don't worry, that's normal. The kitchen is pink. The kitchen is also yellow. This will make sense when you're there. You should open the refrigerator. There'll be a small girl in there with purple eyes and gold teeth. LSU, what's up? Crack a joke and she might smile, but she almost never does. The man and the woman know she's there and they won't talk about her if you ask. Don't touch the girl, just watch her. She'll count off her fingers. Her fingers will be so large, so swollen, and you won't know her name. You don't need to. Her hands are covered in something that looks like black paint, but it isn't. You'll wonder if she's cold, if you're cold. You'll wonder how long she stays in there. Again, this is normal. There'll be eggs and apples in the fridge with her, but that doesn't matter unless you're hungry. I'd only eat an apple if I were you, an orange one. The girl will show you the number when she's done, her fingers dark and sticky. The number will be higher than you think, and it'll follow you around the house like a song. The woman will start to talk in circles in the yard. It'll sound like coughing. You should nod if she ever looks at you. There isn't a working record player, but the man always dances. Like most things, you'll hate it, but watch it anyway. In the house, the nights are like days, like a windowless room with fluorescent lights, and you won't be able to sleep. You'll wonder if the light ever turns off in the fridge. Days slip by like overripe bananas. It'll finally happen over dinner. You'll realize the man's eyes are purple, that you've never seen the woman smile. The dinner will be eggs. Remember, only an apple. You won't be able to look at them after this, so look at the table. Think of all of the people and places you've forgotten. Quietly, in unison, they'll ask you for the number. If you remember it, they'll let you leave, and when you do, you realize how long it's been, how blue. Yeah, so my family is like mostly engineers and like very successful and whatever, and so they read that story and they're like, "Who are you? Like, who is your drug dealer?" I don't know. It was a fun time. Anyways, so as a third year, like all third years here, is it Andrew? Is it you and me? Sup, man? Our cohort, you know? We're supposed to write a thesis, and I tried to do that. I tried to be like a really great student and start my thesis in May. And I did start what I thought was my thesis in May. Notice the present tense, or past tense. So I had this whole book going. I decided, Jennifer and I decided we were not gonna go ahead with that thesis about 4 weeks ago. So I started over, which is great. I love it. It's so great. It was so great. My summer was so great. No, but it was worth it, guys. It was totally worth it. But if I can be petty for a second, I'm gonna read one page from that dead thesis. So this is called failed thesis. It's totally different now. Shout out to everyone in the fiction workshop who workshopped that failed thesis. It's dead now. Forget everything you know about me. Cool. So this is homage to my summer. It doesn't have a title. All right. To live without it is worse than the deepest itch. It's a pain that spiders from your gut and steals away every soft part of you. That great and terrible wilderness, that desire. You'll die of it faster, then realize you're pregnant. Remember, more than half of you is made up of rain, and in that way you are no more than a breathing sponge. And when you die, you'll weep water back into the ground like it was never yours to begin with, because it wasn't. Imagine 1,000 unblinking eyes, clear as sky, sun-blinded and unmoving, stretching across the horizon. Imagine they taste like days, hot as blood, teeming with shrimp. The first swallow will push down your throat like a fist, and you'll throb in thanks for it, lips open to it like a lover, chest aching. Have you ever cried tears of pure salt? What was known? There was a truck, it broke down, and she ended up in Mercy. Nothing more, nothing less. Where was the truck? In the country. What direction? Out there. What kind of truck? An old one. Where did you come from? and she'd only say, at the end of the day, I ended up here. New Mexico, Texas, Tennessee, Maine. No one was sure, but everyone had heard something. Orphan, mother, 39, 22, an ex-boyfriend, an ex-husband, an ex-girlfriend, addict, loner, lost. A constellation of possible stories, none of them true, all of them true. Thread them together and you have a history, eventually. Here, this tiny dot of a town in the southernmost corner of a 2-square state. She knew how to find it, how to read dirt and shadow, crawl up ledge and canyon as the day grows long and burnt, until finally, crystal spouts vomiting from red-clayed walls, glassy mirrors yawning under cliff edges, stampeding floods bursting from narrow slots. And the storms, how she loved the storms. It's out there, she'd say, leaning across the bar, her eyes wide and smiling. Thousands of them, as far as you can see, each clear as air, and when you slip into one, its temperature is like another skin. It's water, a whisper, and if you stay in there long enough that your fingers pucker and lips wrinkle, a part of you will never leave. R.I.P. Thesis. Okay, this is the last thing. It's been a long night. I need another beer soon. So I'm going to read something that is a little bit of a preview for next Thursday, because this is a story I will eventually submit, Jennifer, I promise. I just forgot about that. Third year, y'all. Yeah, it's about one of my favorite things that I didn't realize was one of my favorite things until I moved here, and that thing is clouds. So Phil, we got vegetables, I got clouds. I think we're like symbiotic right now. So this story deals with a family, and like most of my stories, it's the women in that family that I'm not really comfortable writing. So I'm not gonna read, Meg, shut up. So I'm gonna read the parts that I am comfortable with, take notes, workshop, and that is the men of this family. So I'm gonna jump around a little bit. I'm gonna read about the brother and then the father. Roll with it. It's so close to being over, guys, I promise. It's called The Air Between Us. The family wasn't sure how to describe the cloud after all was said and done. The brother called it a silent mist, the sister said it was a vicious smog, the father thought it more of a thundering mass, while the mother refused to say anything about it at all. In any case, the cloud arrived on a Tuesday. None of the family was home when it came, the old clapboard house at the end of a drive just empty and waiting for something like a billowing force to fill it, expand in it, and stay. The brother came home first that Tuesday. He came from the local post office, where he worked and sorted the town's packages. He liked this job, liked handling all the different boxes and envelopes. He especially liked shaking packages like presents and guessing what was inside. He knew the people who bought everything online, even groceries, like when he shook a box too hard and dried peas burst from the seams. He also knew the people who got packages from overseas, the boxes with the wild-colored stamps and the wet corners, boxes that were always the most interesting outside but too well-wrapped to guess what was inside. He hated those packages. He liked the game of guessing insides, of knowing without seeing. It was one of those abroad packages, an excessively padded box shaped like a fat paddle sent from somewhere in Central Asia that the brother spent that Tuesday morning unsuccessfully trying to decipher, which made him tell his girlfriend that he'd never go abroad. He was on his lunch break and she had just met up with him. They were eating soggy peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on the sidewalk outside the post office when he turned to her and said, "Only idiots go abroad." The brother didn't know this, but the girlfriend had been unhappy with the relationship for a while. He was a lazy communicator, always grunts and silence when she talked. His kisses were always tongue first, But the girlfriend wanted to travel, had sought out a boyfriend with the intent of traveling with him, because her mother forbade her to travel alone, and what college-age girl wants to go see the world with a mere friend? She dated the brother, brought him PB&Js with too much J during his lunch breaks, and dreamt of the Spanish Steps and Machu Picchu. So that Tuesday, when the brother said abroad was for idiots, that he was never going to leave their town, the brother was thinking about paddle-shaped packages packaged to withstand vigorous shaking. But the girlfriend could only think 8 months. She had put up with the grunting phone calls and wiggling tongue kisses for 8 months. She was never going anywhere with him. She'd have to find another boyfriend now, have to go on awkward dates and hear about awkward childhoods and discover awkward body hair. And she was tired of that, so tired of it all. All she wanted to do was go to Istanbul or New Zealand or maybe just the goddamn state park. So when the brother said he hated abroad, the girlfriend just saw 8 greasy, worthless months, and something snapped at her, and she threw her sandwich into the street, and she broke the brother, specifically his nose. The brother biked home with his post office issue polo pressed against his blood-snotted face and tried not to fall, one hand steering and the other keeping light pressure on his nose. He wasn't quite sure why he got punched. He wasn't quite sure how much blood he lost, but he knew his girlfriend punched him, and his nose cracked, and he yelped, and she said, "It's over." He rolled on the sidewalk groaning until he realized a crowd of people had gathered, all of them holding envelopes and stamps. He didn't go back to his shift in the post office. Couldn't, dumped and bleeding and all, so he wadded up his shirt, grabbed his bike, and pedaled home. He never even figured out what that lumpy paddle package was. So, bloody and dizzy, the brother wobbled his bike toward the clapboard square he lived in his whole life. He threw his bike onto the front lawn and beelined to the bathroom. He didn't notice the cloud. He, of course, was more concerned with his now busted nose. In any case, the cloud was still a faint, misty presence, nothing the brother couldn't blame on sharp pain or dizziness behind the eyes. The brother stared in the mirror and tried to gauge just how crooked his nose was. Is the left nostril higher now, or has it always been like that? No, it's definitely higher. Does this mean there's a bone going into his brain? Does a nose even have a bone? What is a nose? He spent most of the afternoon like this, staunching his blood, examining his quickly purpling face, trying to decide if he should go to the hospital. Every few minutes, the brother had to wipe the mirror with his bloodied shirt, thinking the fog was perspiration from his frantic mouth breaths and not the air congealing darkly around him. The sister was the next person home. She pulled up in her old sedan, pulled out a large suitcase. When she caught sight of the brother's bike in the front yard, she quickly looked around and then dragged the suitcase behind the garage. Walking inside the house, the suitcase safely hid, she called out her brother's name. She was older than her brother and, unlike him, immediately noticed the cloud. "You smoking again?" she yelled. "What?" the brother yelled back. It had been a few hours since the brother had got home, and he had decided not to go to the hospital. However, he did decide that lying down was the best thing to do, since it helped with the pressure building around his nose. So the sister found her brother lying on the bathroom floor, the sink and tile floor speckled with nose blood, the brother's face a splotchy mess of red and brown and blue. "The fuck happened to you?" she asked. "I got dumped," he said. "Is that why you were smoking?" she asked. "I think my nose is broken," he said. "There's smoke everywhere. Are there bones in noses? Mom and Dad are gonna fucking kill you." The sister waved the air in front of her face. The cloud bent around her hand. "What?" the brother sat up at the mention of their parents. She sniffed. "Pot or tobacco? I can't tell. What are you talking about? You're such an idiot." The sister left her brother in the bathroom and went around the house opening all the windows. She was used to cleaning up the brother's messes. It was, after all, what older sisters do best. But the sister also resented this fact, resented that she had never someone to cover for her messes, and she pulled every window pane with a scowl. She was going to clean this mess, yes, but she wasn't going to stick around for when their parents got home. The brother was on his own with that. He was, after all, 19, 20? She couldn't remember. She couldn't remember a lot of things recently. She had her own messes to clean up, big mess. And her brain couldn't place the small facts anymore. Only fact she could place were the number in her bank account and how small it was getting, the daily schedules of her family members, so that she could sneak her things back into the old bedroom without them noticing. The sister finished opening all of the house's windows, which wouldn't help with the cloud, it was there to stay, and went back to the bathroom where her brother was still on the floor, still bleeding and broken. "You look like fucking shit," she said. The brother didn't respond, eyes closed. The cloud hung between them, unmoved by the breeze from the window. "I'm leaving," she said. "Can you get me an ice pack?" Alright, should I keep going? I don't know.
Yeah!
Alright, so then we're going to talk about the dad now. Like I said, the women workshop. Thank you. Alright, the dad. On a typical Tuesday, the parents of the family would be at their respective jobs. The father working on spreadsheets for the cement company on one edge of the town, the mother massaging strangers at the spa on the other edge. These were jobs they worked at for a long time, long enough where they were past liking or disliking them. They just went to work. But if it wasn't already apparent, this wasn't a typical Tuesday. While his son was getting punched and his daughter was packing up books, the father was sitting in church. The father wasn't religious, none of the family was, and aside from funerals and weddings, hadn't been to a church since he was a boy. But he felt like he had no other option. After all, he was convinced he had the plague. A week or so before that Tuesday, large red welts appeared all over his body. They were angry, itching pustules that wept with pus. They covered him from his elbows to in between his toes, and he lost sleep over them. Not just because the itching felt like prickling fire all over his body, but also because he had no idea what they were. The father wasn't a sickly man. He got chicken pox when you were supposed to get chicken pox, which, considering his age, was over 40 years ago. He couldn't remember the last time he sneezed. He ate things other than hamburgers. But right before the first pustule erupted on his ankle, he caught sight of a rat scurrying out of an elevator in the office park where he worked. And when, covered in angry, fiery eruptions, he tried to understand where the welts were coming from, he thought of that rat. So he went on the internet, of course, and searched his symptoms, and lo and behold, discovered the bubonic plague. So instead of going to work, the father went to a church and prayed that Tuesday. He prayed in the way he thought people prayed, saying please and help and forgive a lot. He also went to the church because a large welt appeared on his left eyelid and he couldn't see straight. Aside from being unable to read the spreadsheets, the father knew showing up at the office disfigured would cause alarm, and he didn't want to explain how he had the plague. Yes, that plague, the black plague, the one with the weird masks. Yes, it's extraordinarily contagious. He needed his job at the cement company. He hoped his son would stop sorting packages at the post office and go to college eventually, hopefully. Started a savings fund just in case. The mother wanted to go on a cruise to Alaska. She was suddenly super interested in whales, so he had to save for that too. At least he thought his daughter was financially independent. The father was correct about a few things. The park was infested with rats, and with those rats came fleas. And at his desk, while the father was manning his spreadsheets, he was getting bitten by 100 of tiny bugs. What he didn't know was that he was merely allergic to bed bugs, which had recently arrived to the office due to a coworker's misjudged used couch purchase. But convinced that he had the flea-carried pestilence, the father sat in the church pew that Tuesday with sunglasses and itched and begged God and itched some more. He was finally left the church when a deacon approached him, told the father there'd be a blessing for the deaf and blind next month. Please come back for the service. Here, sir, take a bulletin. Disturbed and feeling especially superstitious, the father wondered if the blindness was the next stage of the plague. He rushed back to the clapboard house at the end of the drive to ask who else? The internet. The sister had left by the time the father got home, but the brother was still lying on the floor of the bathroom. He was asleep, which wasn't the best thing to do since he probably had a major concussion, but he couldn't help it. He felt so relaxed on the floor, the cloud coalescing around him in the small room, as if he was draped in a tropical hammock. The cloud formed currents of moisture through the house, dense waves that traveled through the pantry and the hallway and the pipes, growing darker with every passing hour. The father, still wearing his sunglasses, walked into the house without noticing his son's bike on the front lawn or the open windows. He didn't notice the damp fog. After all, with his swollen eye and tinted shades, he didn't notice much at all. The father booted up the desktop in the kitchen, took off his sunglasses, and fumbled through his pockets for his anti-itch cream. The brother lay sleeping on the bathroom floor. The house was quiet, aside from the beats from the modem and the sticky slapping of cream against abscessed flesh. The cloud churned. It went on like that for a while. The day became evening, and the father, squinting at the computer screen, became more convinced of his mortal sickness. Did the website say terminal or liminal? Was that picture of a wart or an eyeball? He brought his face back and forth from the screen as he tried to read the online diagnoses, fighting against what he thought was his rapidly declining sight, never once considering the thick, soupy haze he sat in. Meanwhile, the brother drooled unconscious in the bathroom, his spit mixing with the dried blood on his chin. And then, finally, the mother came home.